Book lovers, book buyers, book enthusiasts, and TBR fanatics, my name is Trisha, and welcome to Trisha by the Book. Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of my favorite reads of 2025 in different genres. In this video, I'm going to cover my favorite fantasy, horror, and classic reads of 2025. If you're interested in finding what I'd read and loved in thriller and sci-fi genre, then please go to part 1 of this video. The next order on the list is fantasy, and it's a mixture of romantasy, sci-fi fantasy, and historical fiction. Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. The Song of Achilles follows Patroclus, an exiled young prince who becomes the companion of Achilles, the greatest warrior of Greece. As they grow up together, their bond deepens into an inseparable love. Patroclus narrates their journey from boyhood through the Trojan War, watching helplessly as Achilles' destiny for glory leads them both towards the tragic fate that Greek mythology has already written for them. Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. A Clash of Kings follows an escalating war for the Iron Throne as multiple kings, Stannis, Renly, Robb Stark, and the Lannisters, clash across Westeros while the boy King Joffrey rules tyrannically in King's Landing. Meanwhile, beyond the wall, Jon Snow faces ancient threats with the Night's Watch, and across the sea, Daenerys begins her quest for power with her 3 newly hatched dragons in the ruined city of Koth. I try to read at least one Game of Thrones book every year, and I don't really care because it's still an unfinished series, so yeah, I can go slow. On to my top 3 in fantasy. Number 3 is ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas. What do I even say about this series? If you're not living under a rock, Sarah J. Maas is the queen of romantasy, and this book is worth all the hype. To be honest, I got succumbed into various booktubes, book talks, reels everywhere talking about the ACOTAR series, and I finally gave up and I thought, okay, I'll give it a read. I read the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, which was good, but the second and the third book, Chef's Kiss. This book follows Farah and her family. Farah, our FMC, lives in poverty with her 2 sisters and an aging father. She lives in a human realm. In this ACOTAR world, there are 2 realms, human and fairy. Humans usually don't enter the fairy realm because it's quite dangerous. Now, Farah, due to really unforeseeable circumstances, has to hunt to provide for her family. So she goes to hunt towards the boundary of the fairy realm, and she does end up hunting a wolf, but it turns out that wolf is a fairy. So she doesn't know it. She takes the kill home, and then the family's happy. This Lord Fairy comes to Farah's house and as a punishment demands to take Farah back to the fairy realm. Now she hesitates, but because of her family's safety, she agrees to go with him. And that guy's name is Tamlin. And that starts in a really adventurous journey where Farah realizes that the fairy realm is not what it seemed to be, and there's a lot of politics and a lot of high stakes adventure, and action is in disguise. Now, the first book really covers a lot of world building. It covers a lot of enemies to lovers trope. It introduces at least that. It has really high stakes, interesting trials, puzzles, and things like that. So as a first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses was a good first book to build up to this ACOTAR world. But the reason why it's on my number 3 list is because of book 2 and book 3, The Court of Mist and Fury and The Court of Wings and Ruin. This is where a lot of interesting characters come into picture, and one of my favorite characters, Rhysand, is in this. I mean, he's in the first book as well, but when you see him, when you read this and when you see this character, just know amazing things are going to happen in the future for the reader. and for our FMC as well, if I may say so. So in second and third book, the stakes go a lot higher. There's a lot of politics, a lot of action, a lot of emotions as well. What I really liked about Akotar, it was an interesting read. Of course, it's a romantasy and there are some steamy scenes in there, but the world building also is pretty good. I think for someone who's into romantasy and who's beginning to just light read on romantasy or fantasy, I think this is a great book to start. I would say towards the end of the series, which is The Court of Silver Flames, it was still a one-time read, but I didn't care much about it. I think it was a bit forced in my opinion, but still it made it to number 3, and I had some amazing reads, really amazing fantasy reads last year. So this just goes to tell you how much a good book 2 and book 3 is. So if you're looking for a foundational, easy to grasp fantasy romantasy series, do give Akotar a try. It is worth your time. Number 2 is the Dune series by Frank Herbert. I'm sure everyone knows about the Dune series. Even if you haven't read the books, I'm pretty sure that you would have watched the movies. Dune is set in the far future where AI is banned after a war with machines. So human beings have started to evolve themselves into these amazing beings. There are human beings called mentats who can do calculations just like a computer would do. They solve complex puzzles. And then there's an amazing clan of sisterhood called Bene Gesserit who really can control mind, body, and soul. So the story follows Paul Atreides, who's a prophesized messiah by the Bene Gesserit, who's from an Atreides family, and Atreides family has been given control of Arrakis. Arrakis is a really awesome planet that is covered with sand, but it's also covered with something special. That is spice melange. The spice melange is really important for all human beings because since they cannot use machines, AIs, anything, spice melange really help with their intergalactic travels easily. And then it has a lot of other health benefits as well. Now, this Atreides family has been given the planet Arrakis for them to extract spice melange for the government. This spice really becomes the foundation of the political, religious war that is coming on to for Arrakis. And this is just a few chapters of the book. The first book really helps in the world building, so it's a very detailed on the Arrakis as a planet, the need for the spice melange, Paul Atreides, his family, his personal relationship with his father, his mother, who's a Bene Gesserit, him being prophesized as a messiah and the struggles he goes through. He definitely has an imposter syndrome in the first book. He's trying to figure out who he is in this unknown planet called Arrakis. Book 1 is very heavy on the world building, explaining everything. However, book 2 and book 3 are my favorites in the series. I think the politics really starts to come into play in book 2, and I think all the world building side of it was already taken care of, so we could really focus on the characters, on Paul Atreides and his gang of reliable, unreliable friends and foe. What I loved about the book was definitely characters, and the world, the Dune world was amazing. And I can't fathom the fact that someone wrote this. Like, this came from someone's mind. I was just flabbergasted. I love the fact that the author really explored different segments of politics, religion, and the cost of power within galaxies. So if you've watched the movies Dune 1 and Dune 2, they are actually book 1 of the series. And so this year, 2026, Dune Messiah is going to be releasing, which is really book 2. And I'm so excited. So while I was watching the movie, I knew exactly what each of the characters were thinking when they were giving this silent look, because in the Dune books, I would say at least 50% of the entire book is internal monologues, is about what everyone is thinking. And Paul Atreides be thinking a lot. He was going crazy with his internal monologue. So it was really interesting to actually see it in the picture, and then also know their thoughts behind it. Of course, in the movies, you can't interpret those prose, those dialogues in the same way. So I really liked both the books and the movies separately as well as together. So read Dune. It's amazing. Number one on my list is my favorite fantasy series. After a very long time, I was a big Harry Potter fan, and after that I thought I'm never going to like any fantasy book. Even if I like a fantasy book, I'm going to like one or two books. I'm not going to like series as a whole, but I was so wrong. A, because maybe I haven't read that many books, and B, because of Red Rising. I love this series. I love this series. Usually, I don't give into the hype at all, but my favorite booktubers have all recommended, and they've really put the Red Rising saga in the top tier. And so I gave it a shot, and I'm so glad that I did. I finished the entire series, I think, in 2 months. Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. Darrow, our MMC, is a red, and red is the lowest class in the color coded futuristic society. And reds are really responsible for extracting helium underneath the surface of the Mars in order to terraform for the future generations. Little did Darrow know that the future generation that he's been waiting for has already been living on Mars. They've been living there for around 300 years, and Darrow and the Reds have no clue about it. And that really pissed him off because he felt like he was just a slave to these elite societies. So, out of rage, revenge, and loss, Darrow sets off a plan to take his revenge on these different colors, the highest being the gold. Now, I think that is too much. I'm giving away too much, and I should not. Now, for me, all the five books are an easy 5 stars for me. I love the entire series. I love each and every book. But if I were to give 6 stars to one or two of those books, that would be Golden Sun and Morning Star. They are just the epitome of satisfyingly writing, action packed, adrenaline rushed prose. Now, I'm going to give you a little personal tip. While I was reading the first book, I knew where this was going. I knew the series is going to have a lot of action, which it does, just takes just getting higher and higher and higher. So when I was reading the second book, I knew I need some badass background music to read this with. So I searched on YouTube, background music or good background music to read the Red Rising or the Golden Sun with. And I found some nice ones, and I read the second book with that. It was pretty good, but I was still not that satisfied. Like, I still felt like the music needs to be equivalent to the amazing prose that I was reading, the amazing fantasy world that I was reading in this Golden Sun book. So when I read The Morning Star, I was going to the professionals. I took out my phone, I started listening to Dune 2 original soundtrack and Tron Legacy soundtrack. And OMG, it just pumped me up so much. The music and the chapters were going so hand in hand. It was perfect symbiosis. And I was just so into reading that book. I just finished it in one go. On to my horror best reads of 2025. A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. A man dies and finds himself in hell, which turns out to be an infinite library where he must search through countless books for one specific volume to escape, a task that could take literal eternity. Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Basterica. In a world where a virus has made all animal meat deadly to humans, society has legalized farming people for consumption. And a man working in the industry struggles with the horror of this new normal after receiving a disturbing gift. Needful Things by Stephen King. A mysterious stranger opens a shop in a small town where everyone can find exactly what they desire at a bargain price. But the real cost is the escalating chaos and violence as neighbors turn against each other to fulfill their dark bargains. These are my top 3 horror reads of 2025. Number 3, Suffer the Children by Craig DeLuey. Suffer the Children follows a terrifying pandemic where every child suddenly dies. It turns the society into tumultuous grief and chaos. After 3 days, the children come back to life, but they're fundamentally changed and they have really horrifying new needs. Through this book, the parents must confront an impossible moral dilemma: their love for the children or the devastating price to keep them alive. What I loved about this book was it was fast paced and it had multiple POVs of different parents. So I was just gliding through the book. I think I finished this book in one or two sittings. It was just a very fast paced, interesting, and devastatingly haunting book. So this is not your typical horror. It's not one of those ghost stories, haunted house. The horror here is really psychological and emotional and just gives you a visceral gut punch on all levels. Like, I was shook. I really liked how the author explored the horrors of parenthood and unconditional love. Reading through this huge moral dilemma, it was so heart shattering, to really see how far will your parents go. Like, there is no limit for your children. There is absolutely no limit on how far your parents will go to protect you, to save you from causing any harm to yourself or anyone else. Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Now, again, Annihilation is not your typical horror. It is sci fi. It is, of course, horror, and it's also psychological. Annihilation follows a biologist who is part of an all women's 12th expedition team to Area X. Now, this Area X is really a big unknown. There have been 11 expeditions already gone into Area X and they've not come back. There've been no contact. So nobody really knows what's happening in Area X. And Area X is expanding day by day. So people want to figure out what's wrong with Area X so that they can stop it. Now, these all-female team goes into Area X, and as soon as they get in, they starts to experience what this myth was about. Now, why this biologist went into Area X, what reasons did she have, what motivated her, that's what the book is about. But what I loved about this book was when I was reading this book, I just felt like I was in a fever dream. I myself did not know what day it was because I couldn't tell. Is it today? Is it a month from now? Is it yesterday? What is happening? And that's exactly how these women who are in Area X felt. They are seeing this really bizarre things. They don't know who to look for. They're just there experiencing. The entire book is just different bizarre experiences, chapter after chapter. And of course, at the end, there is some mystery, um, of the biologist's life, of also people in her gangs, their story as well. And there is a twist at the end, which I think really pays off really well to the entire story. I mean, the entire book felt like a dream. It felt eerie, and I had no clue if what I was reading was true or it was just hallucination, or was it an unreliable narration? Was this like a really ulterior motive of the biologist? I don't know. I don't know what's true. I don't know anything, but I just kept on reading. It definitely takes you on a trip. For sure, it feels like a fever dream, and that's why Annihilation is on my number two favorite horror reads of 2025. I will say there is, again, there is a movie. Natalie Portman is in that movie, and that movie also seems like a fever dream. If you want to read this book and then watch that movie, both are equally good. But I think the book takes the cake because it's more descriptive, it's more eerie and bizarre. My number one read of horror 2025, We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. Now, this one is a haunted house story. We Used to Live Here follows a couple who are flipping this house, and in the interim, they're living there as well. And one day, a family shows up at their door, and the father says, "We used to live here." He really wants to show his kids around where he grew up, how he grew up as a child. And so the couple, who were living there, they didn't mind. They said, okay, it's going to be a 1 minute show and they're going to go on their way. They did not leave. You all know those guests who just overstay their welcome and never leave. You want to be polite, you want to do all things by the book, and they just don't take the hint, and then you have to be more aggressive in your approach. That is exactly what happened with these couple as well. They just refused to leave, and while they were trying to be polite and let them know, hey, it's time to go. Some strange things kept happening, and it just kept getting bizarre chapter by chapter. There is this one chapter which was so hauntingly beautiful. I mean, I have read some horror books, and I would say, yes, there are horror, but they don't give me the heebie jeebies. Like, I'm not getting goosebumps reading them. I know they're horror and I just flow by it. But this one made my skin crawl. It was creepy as hell. And that's the reason why it's on my number one, because it made me feel something. It really made me feel that I'm in a haunted house and there is something creepy going on in that house. I mean, it is your stereotypical haunted house. It's eerie, it's creepy. It may have given me a jump scare. So just for that reason, this is on my number one. It's fast paced, it's gripping. You can literally read it in one setting, and I would prefer you do that because it just adds to the eerie atmosphere while reading it. Like, if you take a break, then you're out of that environment altogether. So I would suggest read it in one go if you can. If not, sure, why not? Last but not the least, my favorite classic reads of 2025, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Little Women follows the four March sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, as they navigate growing up, pursuing their dreams, facing hardship, and learning what truly matters while their father is away at war during the American Civil War. The Trial by Franz Kafka. A man named Joseph K. is arrested and prosecuted by a mysterious, absurd legal system for a crime that's never explained to him. And despite his efforts to defend himself, he can never understand the charges or escape the bureaucratic nightmare consuming his life. The end is captivating. Now, my top three classic reads of 2025. Number three, Animal Farm by George Orwell. Animal Farm follows a group of farm animals who overthrow their human owner to create an equal society where all farm animals are treated equally. Yeah, right, because that happens in real life as well. This farm is now led by a pig who promises equality and prosperity to everyone. However, this pig becomes as tyrannical as the human he replaced, really twisting the ideals until the oppressed animal realized that they did not fight for the revolution. They just replaced one dictator with another. What Animal Farm really is the allegory of the Russian Revolution and the rise of Stalinism. It shows how the revolutionary ideals of equality eventually just gets corrupted by people who seize power. This book was short, accessible, funny, and brilliantly written. You can literally read it in one sitting and it just packs a powerful punch. This book works on multiple levels. Even if you don't know the historical context to it, this will still resonate with you because it's literally happening everywhere. I really like how they've used simple animal characters to speak such volumes on propaganda, corruption, power, and just politics in general. Orwell's satirical wit really made this serious political commentary engaging and sometimes darkly funny. My second favorite classic of 2025 was Emma by Jane Austen. This story is about Emma Woodhouse. She is a wealthy, clever young woman. She thinks herself as an impeccable matchmaker, and she just goes around in her town trying to match people together. Emma is a complex character. She is very much self centered, however, warm and gentle. Emma is sometimes blind to other people's feelings, but is surprisingly empathetic. She tries to be this amazing matchmaker. She knows what love is, but she herself has never fallen in love, and she absolutely does not know what love is. So this book really revolves around Emma, her friends, her family, and how Emma grows up. I don't know, within the span of time of this book, grows up to really know more about herself. Emma is a flawed, privileged, and an infuriating protagonist, which really helps with the book because at the end, I could really see Emma grow as a person. So her character growth was so satisfying to watch, and it just made me really like Emma as a person as well. Like, I did not know that I was a mean girl. What are you saying? Emma started off as a mean girl, but somehow likable. And at the end, she became really likable and not as much mean. All in all, Emma was such a good read. The ending was perfectly earned and satisfying without being too sentimental. Last but not the least, my number one favorite classic book of 2025. Well, not just my favorite classic book, this book is my favorite read of 2025. And that book is, drumroll, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. The Count of Monte Cristo is an epic revenge story. Edmond Dantes is a man who was wrongfully imprisoned for 14 years. He somehow makes an escape and finds a massive treasure. On his way back home, he plans a really long, ludicrous revenge plot to everyone who has wronged him. This was the most satisfying revenge plot I have ever read. This is a huge book. It's a 1200 pager. He was serious about his revenge for sure. But what I loved about this plot was that, sometimes when you're taking a revenge on someone, you become the person that you're taking a revenge on. And if that person is not good, your morality may be at stake. Now, along with an A story, this book has a lot of B plots, a lot of characters and their stories, their past stories, their present stories, and what happens to them. And they all somehow get tied up to this revenge plot. Mr. Dante is not just getting out of prison and he's killing his enemies. No, he's not doing that. He is taking his sweet long time. I'll be honest, I was struggling a little bit in the middle, the Sindbad, the sailor part of it. If you know, you know. But all in all, I felt like as soon as I was coming towards the end of the book, it was so satisfying. And I felt like, oh my God, it's coming to an end. It was such a bittersweet moment. I feel like whenever a person is taking a revenge or really causing any harm to another, it takes a moral toll on that person and the other person as well. And that's exactly what happened with Edmond Dantes. Dantes initially had suffered through so much that he was set to take his revenge. But in the course of time, while he's plotting the revenge, while the revenge is coming to the fruition as well, once morality comes into picture, and Dante is really is struggling with his good versus evil story. Time heals everything, and when you're actually when you're taking a revenge, you're stuck in that time altogether, while everyone else is just living their life. You are stuck in that past, and is it even worth to just live in the past and punish someone or take a revenge on someone for the wrong they had done? Or do you just let time be? It was interesting to read about Dante as a character. I felt like he was such a pure hearted soul that even planning and plotting for a revenge was taking a toll on his own morality. And I don't think such a kind hearted person deserve to be wronged in that way. So I've really felt really bad for Edmond Dantes. He's on a path of revenge, and is it worth it? Is it worth being equivalent to those horrible human beings who did horrible things to you? Or do you just forgive and let bygones be bygones and let time teach them a lesson or two? The book explores really deep themes about justice versus vengeance, forgiveness, and does revenge truly brings peace to anyone? All human wisdom is contained in these two words: wait and hope. If you have time to read a big, big book, and if you're into classics, if you're into a good revenge plot, then I would really recommend reading The Count of Monte Cristo. It's it's really something. So that's it, guys. These were my top genre reads of 2025. Please do share in the comment down below if you've read any of the books. Share some insights, some personal stories around it. And if you have any interesting reads from 2025 that you'd like to recommend, please also comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.